Welcome back to The Short Game. This is a show about short video games, games that respect your time. I am Raygan Kelly, and I am joined by two awesome co-hosts.
Nate Heininger.
Laura Nash.
And this week we are also joined by a guest, frequent guest and friend of the show. Welcome back, Mark Bramhill.
Hey, good to be here.
Yeah, and in case you haven't listened to an episode with Mark before, Mark is the assistant producer of Bird Note, a podcast all about the exciting life of birds, and it's daily, which is a pretty astonishing feat. I don't know how they pull that off, but we thought he would be perfect to bring him in to talk about this week's episode, Untitled Goose Game.
Yeah, glad to lend my bird expertise to the subject.
Yep.
It is not the first time we have called on Mark for his bird knowledge, as in recent Bird Week. Before it was Apple Design Awards, but really now he's just the bird guy.
He's just our bird correspondent.
It's weird how much overlap there is. Once we blocked in on this bird thing,
Yeah.
Mark, get back here. We need you.
I mean, how many games come out every year that include birds? I don't know for sure, but odds are we're going to cover 100% of them.
Not this year. We're at 20% this year. This year is all about birds, and Untitled Goose Game is the biggest release.
They're all flying right past us. We can't keep up.
So Untitled Goose Game, you're right, is a pretty big release, which is a weird thing to say because this feels like a strange little niche game, but it's also managed to make a really big splash in the part of the internet that follows this sorts of games and even outside it. But before we get into talking too much about Untitled Goose Game and making all of our various bird puns that we're all sitting on and waiting to hatch, I wanted to talk real quick about the Patreon.
Not boo Patreon. Boo the pun. Yay, Patreon.
Yay, Patreon. So if you're not aware, listeners, this show is supported by listeners like you, doing the NPR thing here, on Patreon. So you can go to www.patreon.com/theshortgame or to our website, theshortgame.net, and click Patreon up at the top of the page. Either way, you'll get to our Patreon page where listeners like you are supporting our show, and we thank them very much. If you would like to join our Patreon supporters, the number one perk for supporters on Patreon is that all of our patrons at any level get an invite to our community on Discord, which is where we talk about the games that we're playing as we're playing them. We prepare episodes there, so you get that background on the episode. We make fun jokes and puns and whatnot. So if you're interested, please join us at patreon.com/theshortgame or at www.theshortgame.net and click the Patreon link at the top.
Yeah, I really feel like the Discord has been popping off lately. It's been a lively conversation across multiple different channels. So those who are in the Discord, we can't thank you enough already for being a part of it. And those who are sitting there do I want to know about Nate's personal conflicts that lead him to making episodes be a little bit later than they should be? If you want to know that, get in our Discord because we have everything. We plan literally every element of this show on our Discord, and it's been fun. I really feel like I've gotten to know some of the people who listen, and for a very long time, this show was just you release a podcast and it's just out into the void, right? And now we're actually starting sort of form a little community, getting to know some people, and it's been a lot of fun. So get in there. Tell us about yourself.
Yeah.
Just some games.
Thanks.
It made it a lot more fun for me to play along with some games, and I'm really enjoying the Apple Arcade channel and sorting through the just glut of games that have been dropped in the past couple weeks.
Yes, been a busy time.
It's been great to validate our hot takes in advance of recording because sometimes we say things and then people are like, that's factually inaccurate. And we're like, oh, great. Let's not say it on the podcast.
Do I workshop jokes in the Discord?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Do we say them and pretend to laugh like we never heard them? Yes.
Yes, we do. Thank you again. And thanks, Mark, for coming on the show again. I cannot wait to chat about Untitled Goose Game. This is by a developer called House that I wasn't familiar with, but I actually had seen they have one previous game, and it was one that I was sort of vaguely aware of. Did any of you guys play Push Me, Pull You?
I played it a little bit, I think at Bit Bash or another game festival like it. It's that little bit like cute gross combo, I think is how you described it.
Yeah, absolutely. If you look it up, it's on PS4 as well as I think Steam for Mac and Linux and Windows. And it's a very cute but also kind of distressing, I guess you'd kind of call it like a soccer-esque kind of game where you're trying to get balls into goals, but rather than playing as a team of players, you're playing as a sort of a human centipede with two people at either end. These sort of horrible, crawling, stretching, gross people snakes.
Yeah, I think the cute way to talk about it is like, are you playing that childhood game where you like have a bunch of people on two sides of like tug of war? That's what I'm thinking. It's like tug of war, but plus soccer. That's the cute way to describe it. It is a lot grosser than that.
It's just weird. But they have
but they're attached.
Yeah,
it's not a rope.
It's distressing in a way that's hard to put my finger on. But it looks neat, but it wasn't one that made, I think, nearly as big of a splash as this game. Untitled Goose Game is their second game, and it's their first one published by Panic. So Panic it's still weird to me that these guys have become a notable video game publisher.
Yeah, they're really established in the Apple community as a longtime Mac developer and making great apps for iOS as well. Most famous for Transmit, an FTP app, and Coda.
If you're listening to this episode, it was uploaded to our Amazon whatever the thing is called,
S3.
hosting S3. Thank you, hosting account using Panic's Transmit.
Yeah. But yeah, Transmit, Coda, they made Audion back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
And then they made Firewatch.
Yeah.
Then they published Firewatch.
So weird that they transitioned into video game publishing, but they seem to be doing a great job. They've picked, obviously Firewatch was a big success. And then this game, I think this is like just really, I mean, I don't know if I'd call it smart or lucky or both, but I think they recognized a game that had a massive potential for, I guess, meminess sounds a bit dismissive.
Virality is
virality,
the marketing term.
The virulent game. But yeah, this game has I think they've just done a very smart job of doing sort of social media marketing on it. But it's had an almost unbelievable amount of hype approaching its release and afterwards. That is, I mean, honestly, kind of weird for.
To be honest, this game should not have had the release success it did because it came one day after that avalanche of like 15,000 games getting released at once. Literally the day after it, Goose Game comes over and just sweeps aside all of the conversations that's been happening for weeks. Like maybe there would be one tweet about an Apple Arcade game, 6 tweets about the Goose, 1 tweet about an Apple Arcade game. It was almost insane how quickly it took over the conversation, and it hypothetically shouldn't have worked. To me, the first thing that I loved was the catchphrase they had, or the tagline, "It's a lovely morning in the village, and you are a horrible goose." I was done after that sentence. Like, I was going to stand this game unless it, like, set fire to my foot and hit me over the head. I was going to be a huge
Which
fan.
It probably will, actually.
I mean, the goose would, but I would be okay with it.
Well, this is a game that is like better than the sum of its parts.
Yeah.
Yes.
And one of those big parts in there, though, is its voice, and its marketing and its style. That kind of is bigger than the actual game and the gameplay, and I think that's part of what made it so successful. And it also points out how good of a publisher Panic is. Firewatch was also kind of the same. Like, I loved Firewatch, but the marketing and the whole world around it was almost bigger than the actual game itself as well.
Yeah. Can we talk a little bit about the title? I mean, before we get into anything really about the game, the title is like really distinctive and unusual. And I think that might have been an early reason that this game was talked about.
I mean, it fits to a T, the game, to me. Like, I know it was kind of a happy accident in a way. They needed a name for for a conference or exhibition or something, and they were calling it Goose Game internally, so they called it, it's very much like That 70s Show. Like the writers called it That 70s Show, and we're like, well, that's what everyone's going to call it anyway, so just name it that. I feel like Untitled Goose Game fits this game so well because it is exactly what it says on the tin. It doesn't dress it up. It's not trying to be cute. Like, think about it. This game was called like Honk or like Hatchums, or like it would be so much worse.
Yeah. The only other option, and you kind of just said it, it's either this or just Goose Game. Anything else would have been
like Untitled Goose Game is now Goose Game. I would have been fine with that.
Yeah, it's all fun. Like, that's as much as you needed.
I mean, it also helps. I like Laura said about like that 70s show. It helps very much that like what other Goose games are there? Like there are zero, and as far as I'm aware. And so drawing attention to the fact that this has a really unique premise. This is a game where you play as a bad goose.
Arguably just a regular goose. Yeah, I think that's part of the point.
That's absolutely true. Like I think if you ask almost anyone, like, what are two things you know about geese? Well, they migrate and they're mean to people. Like,
yeah, it's actually pretty remarkable that we just now got to a game where like a goose being an asshole is the main concept of the game, because it is a universal truth about geese.
We got like a guy who can only move by swinging a hammer before we got to a goose.
Yep.
Games are weird. You can play like physical embodiments of spit before we play geese. Like, games have been weird for a while. This one feels obvious.
Yeah, or the totally normal game about a dad who happens to be an octopus also.
Of course. Normal game stuff.
So yeah, let's talk about the goose first. Like, what do we want to talk about how do we describe the goose?
So I adore the intro of this goose, because what happens is it's a bush. You just see this idyllic village and there's a bush and it says press Y to honk, and you press Y to honk and you see little sound waves come from this bush. You hear the giant honk, and then the goose sticks its head out, and then you hit it again and it honks, and then you waddle out of the bush. So the idea is like, you are hiding in plain sight. You are this goose. You are a horrible creature, but the first thing you're going to do is make noise and be known. So like that, to me, like, you get the honk, you get the hiding, and then you waddle out, and you just like, the animations are so satisfying because you feel smug immediately. You own this town. You're a goose. You learn how to like wave your arms around, which, as far as I know, doesn't do anything except let you take up space, which I enjoyed. But like, basically, you're the boss of this town, and then you can enter it. But they make sure you have total control of this dickhead goose before you get to saunter into the village and wreak havoc. And that, to me, made it so much better than if the goose had been in the middle of a screen, like a little circle, and they'd like vignetted out, and then the goose like honked at someone and it froze and said Untitled Goose Game. No. This game is better than that.
Yeah, it is a really good intro.
So once you gain control or become the goose,
you manifest your gooseliness.
Oh God.
I think the way I kept thinking of this game is it's kind of like a classic small scale adventure game, but the adventures are how you can be an asshole to seemingly fine and normal people, right?
Yeah.
So normally in maybe an older adventure game, you have to go around and you collect little items that interact with each other to move the story forward, to create a circumstance that actually like achieves a little goal. You know, you go get, like, I'm thinking like Grim Fandango, right? You have to find the spatula in this place and you bring it over here, and then the cook finds it and that allows you to do this, etc. Right? It's all about like item and scenery manipulation to achieve your goal. But instead of like moving a character's plot or arc forward, it's all about either minorly or severely inconveniencing the people that exist in this world. The goose seems to have a goal, a mindset, which as the game goes along, that evolves a little bit, but more or less you're entering into a new zone, a new environment, and you're given a list of things to do, from make someone buy their own stuff back, to make someone go barefoot or make someone dress you in a bow tie. There's all sorts of like really silly things, and your job is to enter into this zone and manipulate the world in a way that accomplishes these goals. And they are all, there's not a one that isn't like sort of some way inconveniencing one of the people that exist in this world.
It's like, what if all of the Zelda hearts were achieved for making someone's day worse?
Yeah. Yeah, and nothing like too horrible. I mean, there's some things, like a few things, maybe you break them or you like rearrange things. It's just like,
yeah, you're not really like injuring anyone.
Yeah, and I actually really loved that about it. It's just like,
they're pranks.
Yeah, they are pranks because the people like catch you, and there's a whole thing about like no more geese. And it's like if you were actually hurt, someone would kill the goose. Right? But instead, they'd be like, but instead you're like, oh, I'm going to make you, I'm going to steal this guy's hat, bring it over here, and then this person's going to put it on this statue. And now that guy doesn't have a hat, and now this person looks stupid because they put someone else's hat on the statue, right?
I mean, from the villagers' point of view, like, they don't know it's just one mastermind geese. Like, geese don't look that distinctive. So, like, in them, there might be like 30 geese terrorizing this town. They don't know it's just you.
And I've heard this game described in many places, pretty much everywhere, as a stealth game, which I think somewhat makes sense, but kind of depends on your play style. Because, like, I did not play a very stealthy goose. There are a few places in this game that really truly require stealth, but in most places, stealth can also be fully replaced by loud, angry honking and aggressive running and flapping. And I appreciated that about this because, like, personally, I don't usually enjoy the stealth genre very much, but I enjoyed this very, very much because it lets you... you can certainly approach things in a stealthy manner, but you don't always have to. And very often the non-stealthy approach is funnier, even if sometimes it's a bit harder. It's a lot of sort of room for freedom of expression. You kind of decide, everyone's goose is going to be an asshole goose, but you kind of have a choice over what type of asshole you are.
Yeah, it was fun. There's a guy named Kalen the DM on Twitter, at Kalen DM, that said, like, it says a lot about games discourse that so many people are making that stealth game comparison. Like, it's a non-violent stealth game. He actually compared it to silent film, like old vaudeville comedy styles, and like especially how it fit with that the soundtrack where like things fall, and like the idea that like, oh, small town has like Bad Day is a silent film. Like a Buster Keaton. Yeah,
a Buster Keaton movie is like a really good comparison. Like something, and the soundtrack definitely enhances that feeling, but it does have that feeling of just sort of like a slapstick physical comedy that's about a goose.
Well, because the stakes are really low. Like they very smartly and very naturally made it where like if you mess up, because if you think of it like a stealth game. The failure is being like caught and chased by the humans who sort of like interrupt whatever your plan is.
Yeah.
And all they do is they kind of shoo you and they shoo you away, and you kind of lose control of your goose a little bit. They kind of will force you in a direction until you get out of their space. And then what they do is they go around and basically like reset the scene. So if your goal was to make someone break a valuable vase, and you don't really know how you're supposed to do that, so you're going and grabbing the vase and you're like dragging it around, and you get it maybe pretty far away from where it's supposed to be, but then you get caught and they chase you away. They're going to pick up that vase and bring it right back where it was before. They're constantly like little stage managers resetting the scene for you. So if you goof and you mess up or whatever, you just kind of constantly get to try different things. And like the reset is like all the goals are pretty quick once you know how to do it. So you can just like keep trying different things over and over and trying very silly different things. And to Raygan's point, like you don't have to be stealthy. I think like some hybrid in between is kind of where I was, because the humans, and this makes sense, they all walk or they all run just a little bit faster than you can as a goose. So if part of your plan involves getting away, you don't have to do it perfect. You just have to have built enough lead time to get away from them. Like, just
get away
enough,
just far enough to throw that rake in that lake.
Yeah, before they catch you, right? And so that might be really sneaky, going over and like pecking away a bunch of leaves so that the woman goes and picks up her shears and she's distracted by cutting, by pruning the bush that you just messed up. Or it means just going like 10 feet away, honking a ton. So she walks over there and then you, as quickly as you can, dart around the corner. The controls are a little sloppy, which makes it part of the fun of it. And you just try to like outrace these, humans. And I really liked the different play styles you could do. It's kind of like, I think I know what I'm supposed to do. And so I have to execute it. And the execution is silly. Even when you nail it, you're a goose. So it's always silly.
Yeah. I really like the point of like that the stakes are really low on this. And I feel like it really gets at, I think, a big part of why I love this game and why I love a lot of stories that share a similar element, that the stakes are low, but the drama is really high. Everyone cares and is so invested in this thing where kind of nothing matters. So it's okay. Like you're allowed to have that buy into it, where if everything goes totally just goes underwater, everything goes bad, it's not a big deal. Like even playing this game that everything gets messed up, none of the things you're doing they're pranks in this way where it's like, it's really fun to do. And if something goes wrong and you're caught, you're just shooed away. And it's just like, it's so fun how angry you make the people in the game. And just like the level of investment that you feel in the game and that every character feels. Like that's, I think, so much of what makes it come alive as you play it.
Often, and this is a bit hypocritical for someone who is a games podcast, but often describing exactly what happens in a video game is super boring. We often have to try really hard to get around that. This game, if we just describe the steps we took to like these pranks go off, you would be laughing. Like even describing it is funny. Like the steps you take, I've talked about it to work and they're like, what are you covering for the podcast this week? I've been like, Goose Game. They're like, what happened? I was like, let me describe how I made this kid put on a different pair of glasses. And I've said it, they've been like, oh God, I have to play this game. I can't wait to play these stupid pranks on people. It's fun to describe it. And it also makes it's so accessible. It's not just accessible to non-gamers. It's exciting because they want to have fun and play with the Goose Game and run around and be a goose. And it doesn't feel like there's a high skill to involve. You just are like, oh, I can peck stuff and try to solve problems. Yeah. So many puzzle games feel like they're like, oh yeah, you have to have played 30 puzzle games to get this. This one's like, oh no, I'm just a dickhead goose. How am I going to get this what I want?
Yeah. And they also give you one thing that is very nice, because some of the puzzles, and I think that's the best way to describe them, is goose puzzles. Is
okay.
You're basically,
that's what I called them.
You're presented with a list of things you have to do, right? And some of them are super obscure, and some of them you can pretty much tell right out of the gates. Like I have a general idea of what I need to accomplish with this, and it makes it where even if one of them you're like, I know I need to get this guy to spit out his tea. I think I know how to do it, but the couple efforts I made didn't work. So I'm going to go to a different thing on the list, and I'll probably make a discovery while working on another thing on the list that will help me resolve the one that I started at the beginning. So you just get this sort of open world is not the right word for it, but
no.
But the list of achievements, puzzles, whatever, allows for such experimentation that even if one of them seems difficult or seems like unintelligible or you have no idea what to do, it's like, cool, go do another one. And you'll probably, by doing those, start to unlock what you need to do for the other ones. So there's never any real high challenge in this game or real high stress. And there's also, there were a couple things that were kind of hard. A little of them took a little bit of execution, at least in the way that I played, which was, I think, similar to Raygan, which was a lot of mad dash, try to beat them. And even at the worst, when I kept getting caught, I just had to okay, what if I'm starting to feel frustrated, what am I actually doing right now? Oh no.
What you're doing right now is you're flapping your arms as a goose because you're like, no, I'm supposed to do this.
Yeah, this chef keeps stopping me from grabbing this pint glass. And every time I grab the pint glass and he gets me, I drop it and break it. And it's like, that's such low stakes that you just take a step back, hit the honk button a lot, spin in circles, laugh at the goose animation, and just move forward.
Yeah, it's also really fun that you can explore some of the extra areas. I mean, it's not a huge playing field, but there's little extra spots. Not only might it help you achieve an objective, but also you can find little stupid stuff. I think that Shane isn't on the podcast this week, but we've been delighted about hearing his stories about playing it with his little 2-year-old. And he's like, Ty apparently lost his mind when the goose picked up a pacifier and kept like yelling, make him a baby. And like Ty came up with
a baby.
Make that goose a baby. He's a baby. Also, apparently, like Ty would just be like, new mission. Pick up all the pumpkins.
Move them all to the bushes.
Move them all to the bushes.
Or he wanted Shane to just drop everything into the well. As soon as they discovered the well, he was like, drop this in the well. Drop that in the well. Put that in the well. And like this actually sounds like something about that. I think something about how clear the activity of this game is what makes it I think appealing and accessible to gamers and non-gamers. You can watch a GIF of this game and immediately understand that this is a game about being a goose. Something I really liked from there's a Gizmodo article called A Birdwatcher's Review of Untitled Goose Game. The person who wrote it was not a big video game player, but they were very excited to play this game because they love birds, and they immediately looked at it and said, well, here's a quote from it. He said, when I heard there was a game where I could simply be a goose, I knew I had to play. I could be good at being a goose. And I think that's what really appeals to people about this. Like a 2-year-old can look at this and understand what it is possible for a goose to do. And it's the same for anybody, whether they're a gamer or a non-gamer. They can take one look at the action of this game, even in something like a GIF on Twitter, and immediately understand what it is possible for that goose to do.
Yeah, other than maybe being able to grab with its beak things that you wouldn't act like a real goose would have a difficult time. For the most part, I
think you're underestimating geese, actually.
Well, that's what other than the sheer intelligence that would require for these geese to do it, there's no ability and there's no thing that you do that is so wildly out of the realm of what a goose could do if it had the brain of a human.
Out of all the games you've played this year, is this the most likely to get turned into a movie?
I think this could be a marvelous short film.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Or, like a mini series on Cartoon Network. I do think this may spawn a goose-centered,
DreamWorks movie.
Yeah, there's gonna be more goose content, and they're all just gonna be trying to ride on the coattails of the success of this goose game. And somewhere out there is an indie game that we don't know about that is also goose themed. They're like, damn it, we were here first.
You said coattails and goose, and now I just have a goose wearing a trench coat and a hat with the pipe he got from the game, and I'm a completely different
Goose Game 2.
Already working on fan art.
2.
Got it.
Yeah.
About the kinds of things that the goose can do, I want to talk a little bit about the controls of this game, because it's very interesting to me that there are some ways in which the controls are actually a little clunky, but they're also very goose-ish in a way that's hard to completely describe. On the Switch, you're playing this with an analog stick and buttons, and so you can move around with your analog stick in any direction. The goose cannot fly; it only can waddle or run. So there's a run button. You hold down that run button, and the goose will walk at a slightly less leisurely waddle than before. He's never fast exactly.
It walks with a little more intent.
Yeah. But when you're running, which you really need to run if you're going to walk, even if you're even going to have any hope of escaping from a human who's intent on grabbing you or shooing you, while you're running, it restricts your ability to turn, which I think is kind of meant to simulate the way that geese are not very they're not agile. They can either move around or they can move fast, but they definitely can't do both at the same time. So you're able to run in one direction, more or less. You can slightly turn, but not much. Or you can waddle slowly with full directional control. And then, of course, you have your honk button, and you have your flap wings button, which really just sort of makes you look threatening. The honk is pretty, is used quite a bit in the sort of action of the game, but the flapping, not so much. I actually found that particularly the turning radius thing was a little bit confusing to me early on and occasionally a little frustrating. Once I figured it out, once I kind of got my goose head around it made – and I'm sorry, I'm missing one more thing. There's a bend over, like a neck bend button. Or is it trigger? I forget.
Trigger.
Yes.
Yeah, the other triggers spread your wings, which again, useless but fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are some uses for it in very specific puzzles, but it is most of the time just for show. If you want to look real good.
Yeah.
Well, it's really like, I was walking here. Like, that's what I used it for.
I mean, if you've ever been around a goose and it's done that at you, that's a threat display. That's a scary thing to see. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm personally very afraid of geese because they are pretty large. And have you ever seen the insides of their mouths?
It's the tongue. The tongue placement is so prominent. God. It's very weird.
It's a horror show.
They're terrifying. They have these sort of Mark, you're probably an expert on goose mouths, right?
I will just agree that horror show is a pretty accurate summation.
Is this where we relate our personal geese trauma? Because I know Nate has some and I have some.
I have some secondhand.
Let's go for it.
I was 11 years old, right? And me and my...
That's prime goose terror.
Yeah, this is prime nightmare time. Yeah. And I was at a Kohl's, which is its own nightmare.
Kohl's, please give us the $5 for that mention. Except you called it a nightmare, so maybe don't.
Brought to you by not Kohl's. And I, like most of the department stores, there's I don't know, a little bit of landscaping out front, right? There's bushes in a brick laid area. I was out there just, being a child, and I guess some goose had chosen that area to be where it had its nest. And I was just walking around being small and kind of came around a corner, and I was 2 feet from a goose that was on its nest of eggs. And it was very unhappy about my presence and did the whole got tall, started flapping its wings. I was like, I come in peace, and just ran I thought I was gonna die. It was, I will never forget it.
So I think Canadian geese are differently colored than the goose in this game, but they are just as much of an asshole. So my mom needle pointed a Christmas tree skirt for 20 straight years that had Canadian geese on it. But I grew up in Texas, had never seen one. So I actually even wrote in my college essay, it was one of the big metaphors, because it's a stupid college essay about how I wanted to have weather and maybe I'll see a real goose or something. So I completely romanticized this Canadian goose. So I'm at Northwestern, and the lake is partly frozen and there's a ton of geese, and I'm leaning over and I'm taking pictures of the geese with my camera, and I'm going to send it to my mom and be look, it's come true. And then my messenger bag's on the ground and a goose walks over and just shits all over my bag.
What? Oh my God.
Honestly, I think that's the one thing this game was missing, is the ability to take shits all over everything.
Oh my God, that is aggressive.
Yeah.
I was just oh, look, my dream has come true.
Yeah.
Why is my bag covered in goose
That
shit?
is a real alpha move. Actually, yeah, most of my interactions with geese have been via their really truly foul feces. My area here in Colorado is, I guess, on some kind of goose migration flight path or something, and there's this very specific time of year, twice a year or so, where we get this absolutely massive influx of geese. And I live right next to a nature preserve sort of thing that, formerly an armory that has been sort of turned in. There's bison and stuff in there, so it's really just a bunch of open space. And so the geese will show up and you hear them from my house. Like there will be a cloud of geese and they will pass over the house, and you hear this literally like they're as loud as if they were like right in the room with me, just honk, 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 honk for a while, because they're very large clouds of these geese. And every time I hear that, I'm like, better move my car, because like
a literal shitstorm.
It absolutely like, and you know, you think of bird poop, like I'm used to like pigeon poop, right? Like I'm a city boy, but like goose poop is nothing like that. It's massive. It's like brown, massive, like the only barely smaller than dog shits. Like a small dog and a goose, almost indistinguishable. And it's just, oh my God, it's so foul. And you definitely don't want to approach those things. They're hanging out in these big crowds where like, you know, you go anywhere near the crowd of geese, they all turn and look at you like, hey, you came to the wrong neighborhood. Like, get out of here. Like, oh man, they are threatening presence in this area.
There's a pond by our old house that we would go, and there are ducks there, normal, friendly ducks, and beta ducks, and there was this nice little duck couple that I named Jericho and Deborah. And we would go and feed them all the time. But you had to watch out because these big asshole geese would come over and steal their food. So we always had to like try to distract the geese to go over here while we would feed the ducks over here. Is very obnoxious. Because it's like, come on, goose, you can get your own food. All right.
And yet, secretly, we all wanted to play that asshole goose.
Well, now I didn't know that. Now I do.
But now we do.
Yeah, now obviously. And that's what I mean. It like I was saying that earlier. Like, how did it take us this long to figure out that that is a fun thing to do?
Yeah.
Is be a goose.
Yeah. My brother, when we were really little, I remember my grandparents live in Honolulu, and visiting them, he got bitten by the state bird of Hawaii, the nene, a kind of goose. And,
what an honor.
Yeah, he is not a fan.
Very specific Hawaiian version of the goose game meme is to say, watch me nene, and the goose bites somebody.
Yeah, right.
Have you ever seen? So I mentioned the inside of goose mouths before. They are an absolute horror show. If you want to look up a like a photo or something of them, they have these reverse teeth. Like you don't think of birds as having teeth. You think of, you know, oh, it's a beak. It's like a smooth surface, right? It's not. It's got these like inward facing spines sort of thing, and also there's some of those on their tongues as well. And it looks like if a goose bit you, it looks like it would be extremely painful.
Yeah, you got to look out for them.
Mm-hmm.
So back on the that was great
game.
That was all great hashtag content.
And if you want more like that, join our Discord. So the just to go back on the movement for a second, because that was a thing that like from time to time was frustrating, but I think that was like intentional.
Oh yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Right?
Oh yeah.
It felt a little quappy, you know, a little Octodaddy, where like, wait, Octodaddy, it sounds very different than Octo.
It does sound quite different. That's a different game.
Yeah, for sure.
That's the sequel to Dream Daddy.
Yeah, right.
When they're all dating each other simultaneously the whole time.
Exactly.
So I do think it was intentional, but that's the only time where I was like, oh my God, I know what I want to do with this goose. I just can't, because you can't turn like you want to turn.
Yeah. I think it's something where it definitely adds the right amount of challenge, but unlike something like Quap or something like that, where you are, to me, that's too frustrating and limiting. And I wind up feeling just kind of like discouraged from that. This is like just the right amount of challenge where you're just like really focused on piloting your goose, but you're not, and you're getting really into it, but you're not just like feeling discouraged in that way.
It's not like car games when you have a shitty car and you're like, oh, this car sucks. Why don't I have a better car? This is your body. You're a goose. Like, these are inherent limitations of your goosey form. Like, I kept trying. There was early on, like, a shopping basket. You're trying to put stuff in the shopping basket. And I kept turning around and hitting stuff out of the basket with my ass. And I was like, oh, it's just because I have, like...
That goose cannot walk in reverse.
I accidentally flipped that shopping basket upside down. Unfortunately, the game was smart enough that if I placed the items on top of the shopping basket, it counted it. So they
it's
clearly
pretty forgiving.
Yeah, they did some QA on that stuff. So I definitely appreciated that. I they definitely when talking about like the controls, I think they definitely like know what routes people were likely to take when trying to run away or trying to like get to different areas, and they would clearly purposefully put barriers there that made that control scheme require just a little bit of extra like deftness to get around that corner. There's a barrel for no reason, right? And that's the thing that's going to catch you. And if that barrel wasn't there, it'd be an easy turn. But they've added obstructions just enough to make it where you have to execute just a little bit more finely than you might expect.
It's something I also appreciate because sometimes games like this, where the look is pretty minimalist, or like at least that like pastel, like pastoral look, like it can feel kind of like towns are intentionally empty because they're trying to be like Scandi or whatever. This game gives enough stuff that the town feels pretty lively. Like there's a lot of objects to interact with. Like sometimes they're trying to get rid of so many things because they don't want extra stuff they have to work on. Here, like, yeah, like you can go pick up a plane. It might not be an achievement, but I had a lot of fun playing with that plane, taunting that child with that plane.
They actually do a good, because I compared it, I was talking about adventure games earlier, and one of like the things with adventure games often, it's like if you can interact with it, it's probably a thing that you need.
There's no red herrings, you know your tasks, but you can do stuff.
Yeah. In this game, they make it, there's so much stuff to interact with that it's free for experimentation while also not feeling like limited by what the world is offering.
Yeah, even after I had achieved all of the to-do list items, I still went back and was like, what other havoc can I cause on this town?
Absolutely.
What can I do with, where can I take this pacifier? And just like seeing like what sort of weirder multi-step things I could accomplish. And still, there's a whole bunch of stuff that isn't explicitly given to you by the game that is still really fun to cause.
You know, something I wanted to ask you guys about was like, so it feels like really like a bit of a revelation in this game that it's like it's a game about the joy of being an asshole in a way that's funny, not mean. You know, like, and that's kind of a difficult needle to thread. And I was racking my brain about this because that feels like such a natural, fun thing to do in a video game. Be an asshole, be an agent of chaos, cause havoc in a way that is, you know, funny, not mean, sort of low stakes. And I had a really hard time thinking of any other game that really does that. The closest I can think of, and a game that I thought about several times as I was playing through this, is Katamari Damacy, because
I was about to mention that, actually.
Yeah. Because like that game isn't necessarily exactly about being an asshole, but you are like absolutely causing havoc in the lives of everyone around you while you're trying to complete your little task. And there's also a certain element of like the fun of interacting with a huge variety of tiny objects, or not tiny, so, you know, they're regular size, but like just interacting with all of these various different objects in ways that are like destructive and weird and funny. And yeah, I can't think of any other games that really play in this space, which is surprising.
I've got one that when we played that, I compared to Katamari a ton, which was Donut County.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That one has that same like havoc, like it's still low I mean, people are getting like sent underground and have lost their homes, but also like mostly they're not like, oh no, I can never like send Jimmy to college. They're like, oh no, you're a mean person.
Yeah, when you get wrapped up in a Katamari ball, you get shot into space. That is
people died.
Yeah, people are dead. You're killing every one of those things that you wrap into it. In Donut County and in this game, it's at worst a significant life interference.
Yeah, no, I loved Donut County as well. And I think the two games do, I feel like, aesthetically, I think they remind me of each other and just the art direction. And I absolutely love that aesthetic. And
me too.
I think in their puzzle format as well. Yeah, I think in similar in Donut County, like none of the puzzles are too complex. They're normally going to be maybe one or two tier like staging elements where you do this to set up this next part and accomplish it.
Yeah, and when we recorded Donut County, or when we recorded the Looking Forward to 2019, I believe I was like, Donut County, 2019, Dirtbag of the Year, the raccoon. I was like, if Untitled Goose Game is not the Dirtbag of the Year, I will like eat something.
Sure.
I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do with myself. And now we have it, and I'm like, yep, Dirtbag of the Year.
Yep,
Dirtbag of the Year.
Done.
Goes to Goose. Yep.
Let's wait.
The Goose Game does have a title, and it is Dirtbag of the Year.
It is Dirtbag of the Year.
Actually, something that I really liked was that the developers clarified for everyone that the game does not have a title. When people started saying, they've said that their actual title is Untitled Goose Game. They're not waiting and trying to figure out a title. The title is Untitled Goose Game, and they were correcting people on Twitter. No, the game has no title. It is untitled. It is an Untitled Goose Game. That is not the title. It is untitled. And I was like,
that is more fun to be pedantic. Yeah. 2020 Dirtbag of the Year, people who still say this game has no title.
yep.
Yeah.
Love you, developers.
Yeah.
The Dirtbag was us all along.
Always.
So something that's really interesting about the game is the score for it. Hold on, actually, 1 second. Let me make sure I get the exact title right of the piece. So the score is Preludes number 12 Minstrels by Claude Debussy. And it's not just the one piece overlaid over the game. What happened was a sound designer, composer, who had worked with House before, was brought in to score the trailer for the game a year or two ago. And the game at the time didn't have any music, and they didn't really have a plan for what would happen with that. But he chose this. He edited the timing of different things so that it lined up perfectly with the actions the goose was doing. And I think that trailer really struck a chord with people and was really fun. And then it kind of was a thing of like, could we actually do this for the game where the music is coming in and is really fitting the action of what's happening on screen as you do it. And so what they did was a pretty clever thing of doing 2 recordings of the piece, one at kind of a lower intensity, like a quieter, kind of half-hearted version of the actual performance, and one that's, more assertive, the more typically what you're going to hear if you go play a recording of this prelude. But
I think they actually did 3. There was a third one for when you're being pursued.
Oh, I thought it was just 2, but
I think
okay.
What I said, or what I mean, I hope I'm not wrong, but I'm pretty sure they had 3 different intensities, which gives it a real dynamism. Like there's sort of like the idle goose music. Mm-hmm. There's the like slower than that, and then there's the faster than that. I'm not 100% sure, so we'll double check.
Yeah, double check.
I'll edit that out if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Like always.
Yeah, perfect.
A service that is offered to one member of this podcast.
As like last year when I decided Our Hearts and I was like, the best level is this one. I was like, oh, I got the name wrong. I just talked for 5 minutes. Shit,
I really tried, Laura, on that one. I tried to edit that out for you, but
I was like, I'm not going to be able to do that again, and I'm also not going to be able to yell it that passionately. So don't worry about it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
Sorry.
But
and
yeah, yeah.
Don't cut out my sick burn on Raygan.
Editor's note: it turns out Mark was right. There were 2 versions of the soundtrack recording, not 3.
But yeah, so the multiple versions of the score then are sliced up into tiny little 400 tiny little segments where it's, I think, 2 notes per segment. And so as that action is going on, it can really rapidly change between silence, intermediate, or faster, or being pursued, or whatever, so that the intensity can ramp up or down as things happen. And if it cuts out, it smartly does some reverb, so it sounds more like a sustain pedal on the piano. And it works so well. It's something where, as you're playing the game, you kind of just slowly realize that the music is reacting to you in this way, and it's just such a delight. I thought it was just so fun to be able to do that.
Yeah, it's pretty much all just piano playing. So as it's getting more intense, you can almost like feel someone like really hammering on the piano, which I think adds to an element of it. It reminded me of Ape Out, a game we did recently. They also did that on the Spider-Man game. Not entirely the same, but they did something really cool with Spider-Man, which is they had the voice actor do the lines when you are not swinging and the lines when you are swinging. So they made the game like more dynamic. If you're swinging, he's like out of breath and he's like trying to speak. And then if you're just like on the ground, he's speaking normally. So it's been really cool to see games evolve their sound design, both music and voice recordings, to actually try to be dynamic and respond to what you're doing in the game. And this game does it incredibly well in a way that's very simple, but it really impactful.
And it really helps that tone because it's not too obvious. It's not trying so hard. It's really funny but subtle. Like it could be wacky and rah, 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 but it's just
just every time it goes to yakety sax when you're being chased.
I mean, honestly, it could have. Like that's the thing. I have been scared for like 2 years that this game was going to be obvious. Like it was going to be.
You've been scared for 2 years.
I have. I've been terrified every night.
I'm sorry you had to carry that every day.
I know, it's my burden that I've been worried that Untitled Goose Game was going to be a like Bozo the Clown instead of Buster Keaton, and I'm so happy I have Buster Keaton.
I hope you can get some sleep.
Finally, I'm catching up. It's been a really long 2 years.
Laura, you mentioned earlier, and just now actually, like that this reminded you of like a silent film or a Buster Keaton thing, and that's what this score is like. It's so close to the experience of, I don't know if any of you have ever been to a theater where they were playing a silent film and had a pianist in the theater playing the score live. I've been to a few presentations like that. And this was so close to that experience that you could almost imagine a little like guy in the corner playing the piano, watching your goose and reacting in time. And it gives it this sort of, I don't want to call it like old timey feel, but it's something like that. It's like it
makes it feel more British little town.
It does
like
make it
the
feel more
Kinks
British
would be
somehow.
singing Village Green Preservation Society, and they'd be like, except for that goose.
It really does make it feel more British somehow. There's a lot about this game that's very British. There's a lot of things about the town that are like, are very British, but it's also still pretty universal. There are geese everywhere in this world, unfortunately.
I believe House, the developer of the game, then they're Australian, if I recall.
Really? Huh. I would have
check me on that, please.
I will, but I would have really expected them to be British based on the game itself. But like, they really nailed a certain like small town British vibe. I have spent very little time in my life in small town Britain. But based on the one extended visit I had as a teenager in Epping, which is a suburb of London that's about as far as you can get on the tube and still be on the tube. It felt a lot like this.
We know you're a Midsummer Murders addict. Face it. Just face it.
Yep.
My dad is British, and his family is all back there, and so I've visited a number of times. And my uncle lives in a town that's probably a few hundred people, maybe 1,000. That this feels pretty much dead on.
Hey, Mark. Mark, you have been brought on as the bird expert. Raygan Raygan's one experience in Britain is what we want to hear about.
As a 13-year-old.
So please, Raygan, Mark, stay in your lane. Okay.
Thank you for setting things back on track, Nate. So I think that's pretty much all we have to say about Untitled Goose Game. This game is a lot of fun. I very much enjoyed it. It's available on the Nintendo Switch and other platforms too. What else is it on?
Mac and PC.
And not on any other consoles yet at this time.
No.
Okay, so I would be very surprised if it doesn't eventually make it to other consoles. So if you don't have a Switch, I would definitely recommend playing this on Mac or PC anyway, because it's short enough that it's. I mean, how long did you guys spend with this game?
A couple hours.
Yeah.
A few hours.
Yeah, and
you can progress without completing everything, which is cool. So it's really hard to get like really truly stuck on this game.
Yeah, so this should run on pretty much anything. If you have a computer in your life, you can play this game. And it'll probably come to other consoles eventually if you prefer to play it there, but it's a really nice experience on the Switch. I had a lot of fun playing this in handheld mode.
I think it's perfect for Switch.
It is perfect. And you can join the discourse out on Twitter, or I have already favorited 21 tweets about Goose Game. Just because people, I feel like I'm only favoriting a small percentage of what I'm seeing, and most of them are not from game people. That's what's making me really happy about this game is you want this experience to be shared widely, and there's no reason not to.
Yeah, I played this Molly with me, who is a puzzle master, so it was fun to play as a group too. Just like try different things.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, like I don't really play a lot of games with my wife, and she's usually pretty bored if I'm putting on a video game. She'll do something on her phone or what have you, and or we'll play I'll play in a different room or what have you. But like I played this in the living room on the TV, and she watched a good bit of it, and we had some laughs about it together. And I mean, it's a great watching game in addition to a great playing game. It's also a pretty inexpensive game. It's $20 MSRP, and it is on a sort of intro sale at $15. It might not still be by the time this episode comes out. I'm not sure what their schedule is on that, but at $20, I feel like this is a great experience. And this game made me very, very happy this week. But of course, listeners to this show know we love to close our episodes with a segment that we call What's Making You Happy This Week. And so I'll start with our guest, Mark. What's making you happy this week?
Yeah, so I just upgraded to iOS 13.1 with the new update, which is slightly more stable, still kind of buggy. But with that, I've been doing the trial of Apple Arcade. And there are just so many really cool games on there that I've had just a hard time just kind of bouncing between a bunch of really awesome games that I've been loving. There's 100 launch titles, I think.
Yeah.
I think we have an Apple Arcade episode in our near future. I think we have to.
I don't even know how we condense something like that, though. Like, we're definitely not going to try all 100 games or anything like that. So I'm not sure how we're going to manage that.
Every time you don't have a game, we'll just do one.
Yeah. What have you had your eye on, Mark?
So I have been, just a few that I've been really enjoying have been Cards of Darkness, What the Golf, and Neocab are all very fun. And I think Cards of Darkness especially, it's by Zach Gage, who has made a whole bunch of other really great phone iOS games, like Flip Flop Solitaire and Really Bad Chess, where they're all kind of very basic games that then have been, some element of them is just totally flipped on its head or thrown out the window in a way where it feels both absolutely ridiculous and silly and suddenly is a totally new game because of it. And so in this, you're doing kind of a dungeon clearing while also a kind of solitaire. And
nice.
So because of that, and it's done with Zach Gage and Pendleton Ward, the creator of Adventure Time, did all the illustrations for it.
That's
and
great.
It's just so cute and silly and fun. And it's something where then I've just been enjoying just quick sessions of that. Then there's tons of other games that I also want to try still, but then I feel like, even I don't know that I could even get to all the ones that I want to play in 1 month without running out. And I know they're just going to be continuing to add more of them. So it's, I think Apple may have won me over with this.
Yeah, same here. I'm not, I gotta say that like the selection is better than I was expecting. There's pluses and minuses to like adding one more subscription service to my life and other things about it. But like, it is a little encouraging to see that I think the curation of these games, Apple has never made good choices with regards to video games ever in their entire past as a company.
Yeah.
And so I had very low expectations for Apple Arcade. But when I started really looking through the list of games, lots of stuff I wanted to play. I've downloaded quite a few onto my phone and have played essentially zero of any of them. But like the one sitting here that I'm staring at, Earth Knight was a game that I played at an event back in 2015 and have been eagerly awaiting it coming out. Back then it was a Vita game, and I had no idea that it was even coming out on iOS. And here it is. And Jenny LeClue is one that I've been looking forward to. Mutazione looks amazing. Like really, really want to play that one. And there's like probably a half a dozen others that are just like, I've downloaded a bunch.
And last week's game, Sayonara Wild Hearts, is also on there.
Of course. We mentioned it then, but I forgot right now. Cause that's also on there. So yeah, if you listened to last week's episode, or if you haven't, go back and listen to it. We talk all about Sayonara Wild Hearts, which might be, at least for me, the like most compelling thing on Apple Arcade. So,
if at least soundtrack of the year, I don't think anything's going to compete with it.
Yeah, nothing's going to beat that soundtrack. That soundtrack rules. Laura, what's making you happy this week?
So I have been listening to a Lost rewatch podcast, despite not actually rewatching Lost along with it. So my experience with Lost was that I roomed with a guy. Like, there was a room in college like that in the summer that everybody multiple sublet their rooms. So there were like 10 people living in this apartment, and it was very bad. But somebody in the apartment had an internship at DreamWorks and would just bring home DVD box sets. So he brought home like Desperate Housewives season 1, Lost season 1, and Muppet Show season 1. Inexplicably were the 3 that I ended up with. But I hadn't watched Lost because I was, you miss stuff when you're in college because there's no TV. So we put like the DVDs and we watched that season 1, and then it became like we watched Lost parties, like it was a thing to do. So I haven't seen them since. And that was like 2004, 2005. Like, it's been a long time. So it's really fascinating. They've almost at the end of season 1. They do the podcast is called The Storm, and it's the same people who did Storm of Spoilers, which is a Game of Thrones podcast. The format before was they talked about things in a non-spoiler way, and then they'd be like, and here's all the leaks we got on Reddit. Like, this is what we think we know. So it was like the calm and the storm. They've now done this for Lost. So the first part of it's, if you've never watched the show, they bleep anything that's a spoiler for the rest of the season. And then the second half is they usually have an interview with someone associated with it. And then they go into the storm, which is all the, like, this is all the references to the end game and all that stuff. It's fascinating how much of a show I have not watched in 15 years is still like recessed in my brain. I only watch these episodes once. Like, I didn't rewatch episodes. And yet they're like, when they have this scene and like Vincent comes out of the bush, I'm like, yeah, that was really cool when the dog came out of the bush. So it's fascinating how much I remember. It's great hearing like conspiracy theories you're not invested with. It's just the palate cleanser I need after being like, I'm still a Game of Thrones book person, and I'm still too involved in all of the theorizing around Game of Thrones. It's great to dip into a fandom and hear equally crazy batshit theories that I'm not invested in. So it's really weirdly cathartic to listen to The Storm. It's a perfect getting ready podcast. And to also be like, oh, I wasn't crazy for investing so much time in this 15 years ago.
Yeah. Well, and the best thing about anything revolving around conspiracy theories with Lost is, unlike Game of Thrones, with Lost, the writers also had no idea what they were doing or what they were going to do.
You come up with conspiracy theories.
So you can do whatever you want.
Like, there's so much space. It's great.
What a weird show. I haven't thought about it much the last little while, but every now and then I think back about Lost and I'm like, man, that was a long show with a lot of stuff that happened, and then just
I mean,
came to
what
nothing.
explicitly makes me happy about that is that there's a segment they do every week, which is the most 2004 thing about this episode. And often it's a piece of clothing, but sometimes it's like the fact that someone made a joke about like sometimes it's like a scrunchie was being worn by somebody. And sometimes it is like, no one understands this, or like the fact that there was a giant Oasis reference. Like, that's pretty 2000.
Yeah. There's one of the best episodes of Community is a claymation Christmas special, and they use Lost as a big time metaphor, and I highly recommend it.
God, I missed that show. That show ruled.
Yeah.
I hate to be a bit of a cliche, but like I know a lot of my what's making me happy this week stuff lately has been about retro video games and retro video game hardware. And that is, again, the case this week, sort of. It's just that's what I play when I'm not playing games for the show, is I play old games, and I get into that. Anyway, I'm done defending myself to you people. So this week I bought a Mister. So if you're not deeply involved in the retro video game scene, you might not be familiar. Mister is a open source project to re-implement a bunch of classic video game consoles and also old computers, things like Apple IIs and so on, in FPGA in an open source way where they can all be run on open source, like easily available hardware. So you start with, I don't need to get too much into the techie weeds of it, but basically FPGAs are field programmable gate arrays. It's a very interesting technology where you build a single chip that can essentially simulate the functioning of a bunch of other chips and be reconfigured on the fly. And what that means is, unlike something like an emulator where you've got one computer with one processor trying to do everything that a complex system like an old computer would do, it actually has you can think of it as having a processor that kind of splits up into a bunch of tiny little pieces that each simulates a tiny little part of the old computer, and you get a very realistic simulation that's cool. Much better than an actual like a regular computer emulator. Anyway, long story short, it's this cool piece of tech that can pretend to be very accurately an SNES, an NES, a Genesis, but also weird stuff like older, like an MSX or an Apple II or a Commodore 64 or even now a Neo Geo, some pretty fancy stuff. It's this extraordinarily exciting piece of tech. And so I'm very excited about it. It's a new tinkering project for me. And I've been spending a lot of time doing research and buying all the little bits you have to assemble. And it's this very techie looking thing with bare boards with little plexiglass case and everything. So I recommend the Mister project if you are getting into retro video game hardware and want a way to get the same feel as an old classic console, but not. It's pretty neat. Anyway,
that is extraordinarily exciting.
Yeah, I know. You're welcome. Nate, what's making you happy this week? Sorry to be a self-parody, by the way.
You're good. So multiple things are making me happy this week. First of all, whatever Mark is eating right now looks delicious.
Super good looking.
It's incredible. Lena made this and was like, all right, I think I'm done mostly with the talking.
Hey, you're good, man. Don't worry about it.
I'm pulling you back in. So whatever Mark's eating right now looks super tasty. Celeste Chapter 9
is
making me happy. So one of my favorite games of all time. I've been slowly grinding my way towards 100%, and which I've never, ever wanted to do on a video game ever in my life until I started playing Celeste. Of course, they've made that significantly more difficult for me now by adding a whole chunk of new content, but I am very much enjoying it. And sidebar, we've been talking about, if you're on the Patreon, we've been talking about doing additional content that will be Patreon only. Some of that may be things like us talking about additions to games we've already covered, like Celeste. So if you're interested in that, let us know.
Yeah.
But I'm very excited about that game. Both the game itself, but also the developers. It's just, I can't believe they keep doing this. They keep making more good stuff that you just get. You bought the game one time, and the depth of Celeste is phenomenal.
And in a way, it's kind of exciting that this, I mean, for me, in a way, it's kind of exciting that this is, they've stated the last thing they're putting out for Celeste, because that also means that presumably they're moving on to make something else. And I can't wait for whatever that is.
Absolutely. Because Towerfall, their first Matt Makes games,
They just
there's been a couple different versions.
And now I forget what they're called.
Yeah, which is a whole awesome topic because there's been a lot of really upsetting news about publishers over the last several months, and all the stuff that Matt Makes Games, now Extremely OK Games is their new name, is all like wonderfully nice and thoughtful stuff from a game publisher. So really a game developer and publisher. So excited about them. But anyway, if you want more of that, I don't know, join the Discord and let me know. But I also I watched the Steven Universe movie last week, which I
love
know
it. This is the third week in a row that somebody's mentioned it, I think.
Yes,
it's so good.
I know. So it's great. So I won't go in on that.
No, I love
much.
it. I love it.
It's fantastic. It's really good. Watch the series first, but if you haven't watched the movie, do it. Big baseball fan. Cardinals just clinched playoffs. So by time we record next time, we'll see if that is how it went.
Good luck.
But that's a big thing that I'm excited about. And so
I'm just so delighted about how happy you are this week, Nate. Like your cup runneth over. It's
my cup
wonderful.
runneth over. And finally, one last thing, and this is my favorite thing to do on this show, is what makes me really happy is when someone goes on iTunes and leaves us a very nice review. So, chef's kiss to anyone who does this. And I want to shout out nicknamed Morpho Monarch, which I have to imagine is a Venture Brothers reference, which is also always makes me happy. So they said some very, very nice things, but specifically they pointed out our soothing tone of voice. So love that. I assume they're talking about Raygan, but I definitely appreciate anyone who takes the time to go on and write very, very nice things about us. We really, really appreciate it. So if you want your iTunes username shouted out on this show and me to make jokes about the nice things you say about us, please go and do that. We love it. It means a lot. So thank you.
And thank you so much for joining us on this episode of The Short Game. You can find our show on the internet at www.theshortgame.net, where you'll also find a contact form. Great way to let us know what games you think we ought to cover. Or, of course, you can join our Discord. Go to patreon.com and you'll / The Short Game, and you'll find all the details you need to know there. You can find me on Twitter at Raygan K. That's RAYGANK. Or you can find our show on Twitter at _shortgame. Mark, where can people find you and all the work you do?
You can find me on Twitter at MC Bramhill. And you can find the work I do for BirdNote at birdnote.org.
Yes. And Laura, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Laura J. Nash, and I'll be frantically doing IF Comp reading for next week's episode.
Yeah, really looking forward to that. And Nate, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at NateSTL.
And listeners, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of The Short Game.